Hey everybody, my name's Ed. Okay, for this random comics review, this one's going to be a little bit different. A few years back, I used to do reviews for a website called Inveterate Media Junkies, and I would do a text piece, and then sometimes I would send in video reviews. And um, and yeah, I really don't know too much about what's going on with the site right now. Haven't been in contact with the guys who run it. It seems like it's still active because I checked in a couple of days ago, and it looks like there's a few people who are still communicating back and forth through the open forums, but there really hasn't been any new content or anything like that in like well over a year or so. But anyway, this is a review I did for them back in 2011. And some of it's been edited a bit, but I'd still say, you know, 4/5 of it is still me. So I'm just going to basically read it the way it's written here. So, okay, so anyway, we're going to jump into it. It is going to be She-Hulk number 37 from 1992. All right, here we go. The 1990s, Nirvana, MC Hammer, high top fades, mullets, Zima, and comic books. On tap is the generally well-received tongue-in-cheek version of She-Hulk by John Byrne. For those who may not be familiar, She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, is a cousin of Bruce Banner, otherwise known as the very mean, very green, Incredible Hulk. To most fans, John Byrne is probably best known for his vintage work on the X-Men and Fantastic Four at Marvel, and for revamping Superman at DC Comics. But for those who still follow his antics, especially on the net, Byrne has a rep for being a somewhat controversial figure in the comics industry, more for his public statements than his actual work. Despite all that, the fact remains that during this series, he was able to wield his substantial talent and take what many people regarded as a C-list character and slowly turn her into a major figure in the Marvel Universe. I have to admit that originally I didn't care about She-Hulk until Jim Shooter and Roger Stern put her in the Avengers, and I didn't learn to like her until Byrne used her in the Fantastic Four. And while I don't think this series is as groundbreaking as some folks do, there's an honest attempt at having fun here, and in these days of intense comic book doom and gloom, this alone makes the comic a creation worth looking at. To be blunt, this issue is rather thin on content. Byrne is on both script and pencils with inks by Keith Williams. She-Hulk and Wyatt Wingfoot, her boyfriend at the time, fly home from the previous issue's adventures ready for a night on the town. There's a gag at the expense of Rob Liefeld. Then the living eraser, a little green man who makes things disappear by waving his hands, kidnaps the couple, taking them to far out Dimension Z. Apparently, the king of this world has Jen kidnapped because he wants her to be his queen. She-Hulk makes a crap about cheesy pulp sci-fi worlds where all the women look like fabulous babes and the men look like something I'd scrape off my shoe. Needless to say, female Hulk isn't having any of this. She grabs Wyatt, attempting to escape using the living eraser's teleport device, but since she doesn't know how to properly operate the equipment, she and Wyatt completely vanish from reality instead, leaving the next 3 pages completely blank. She-Hulk finally reappears by ripping through the comic book page. She then name-checks Byrne yet again, noting he used the same storytelling device in an earlier issue of Alpha Flight. Jen also demands that Byrne draw backgrounds and panels from now on. Suddenly, she and Wyatt appear back at their fancy New York loft, The Inn. I believe this series stood out because back in the day, it was an unabashed humor comic released in the middle of the grim and gritty trend. Humor is subjective, so how funny the comic is remains entirely up to each individual reader. Most of the jokes here are based on an awareness of the superhero genre and characters breaking the fourth wall. As much as I like snarky, self-aware humor, much of Byrne's gabs are kind of meh. They're a little too many rely on, "Hey, we're in a comic book," or "Hey, our antagonists are second-rate concepts created decades ago. Boy, do they sure look goofy in modern times." Many people have described Sensational She-Hulk as postmodern, but I'm not sure if I agree with that definition. I just don't buy that this book is an intellectual deconstruction or criticism of the media or the society that created it. It's more like a playful spoof, like those old cartoons where Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck return and directly address the audience, or the Tex Avery directed shorts where a sight gag revolved around the fact that the characters in the film knew they were in a film. Hell, the last part of Sensational She-Hulk 37 reminds me of the Daffy classic Duck Amuck, directed by the masterful animator Chuck Jones. I truly don't think Byrne's intent was to challenge the bourgeois expectations of the medium with Sensational She-Hulk. I think he just wanted to do something silly and goofy. Byrne's art is also worth a comment or two, especially since his layouts are dramatically different from what they were 10 years prior. In his earlier days, John Byrne would use very tight pencils and several panels per page to tell his story. In this issue, he uses mostly 3 or 4 panels per page. At one point, She-Hulk even mentions the story is mostly Byrne vamping until the next issue, when we'll supposedly get a real story with more plot. Important to note, while the story is slight, the writer-artist has enough command of his craft to design the issue in such a way that the reader feels that he or she has read a story, however thin, with a beginning, middle, and end despite the blank pages. Something easy to enjoy is Byrne's visual depiction of She-Hulk. I have a vague memory of reading a letter a fan wrote somewhere stating that before Byrne, artists drew She-Hulk like a female monster, but Byrne drew her like a beauty. I really appreciate the way that John Byrne struck a balance between making Jen look like a female weightlifter and a hot babe. He couples his basic understanding of anatomy with a keen sense for larger-than-life comic book art. In the end, his unique artistic influences are able to make all this craziness work. The Dimension Z phones are very much Kirby Ditko aliens. They're stereotypically weird for the late 50s, early 60s, and perfectly goofy for the 90s, which of course is the whole point. Byrne's art during these sequences is nothing stupendous, but it is fun in the way that some of the more contemporary sophisticated art simply isn't. There's no letters page in this issue, but there is a bullpen bulletins. Things that stand out: hype for the Sergio Aragonés Gru, and the 19-part Avengers Operation Galactic Storm crossover. There's a nice shout out to veteran Fantastic Four inker Joe Sinnott on his 65th birthday, as well as congratulations to Peter and Myra David on the birth of their daughter. Marvel also takes the time to tell aspiring writers and artists to please stop calling the main office and just submit their work through the mail. There's also something here called the Coolometer. Number 1 on the Coolometer is non-sexual harassment. I'm assuming they meant not sexually harassing people is cool, as opposed to harassing people is cool as long as it's not sexual. At least I hope that's what they meant. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th on the meter are Red Fox and Margaret and Pre-Modern Art. What? Was this published in 92 or 69? Geez, Daddy-O. Sensational She-Hulk 37, while not a standout issue, is still competent. Is this faint praise an actual endorsement for the comic? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, that's pretty much the review I wrote. Let me know what you think. I got to thank you very much for listening, and everybody have a great day. I should probably apologize. I know a lot of it kind of seems a little highfalutin and whatnot, but like I said, I was trying really hard to be an actual writer, as opposed to how I normally do these things where I just kind of wing it. Okay, anyway, that's it for now. Thanks, and you have a good day.